Our next talk has a title you've probably also already seen on the slide, and Aladdin has been coaching me on how to properly pronounce it. So I am going to do my best for you in a minute, so don't laugh at me too hard when I get it wrong. Listen, think of what Claire said. We all remember Feline, of course, who was one of the founders of this conference. Spoke here once before, though she swore she never would aspire to get her own conference back then. And he's now graciously come back at much request. She is assisted by Aladdin, Sridan, who is an assistant professor. And they will talk today about the Haiti programming language and the efforts they made to translate it into Arabic. Now, to see if I can get this right, if I remember correctly, the title of your talk is Tatouir Lughat Barmaza Arabia.
مرحبا Joy of Coding. أهلا وسهلا فيكم في جلستنا اليوم عن تطوير لغة برمجة عربية. معكم علاء الدين سويدان.
Hello everyone, my name is Feline Hermans, and maybe you got it, this is Aladdin Sridan. And today we're going to do a talk about how to do programming in Arabic. But before we're even going to talk about programming in Arabic, let's look at how people that use Arabic use computers, because for us, most people in the audience, I guess, left to right is the default. Sometimes I will say the normal way, even though, of course, normal is very much culturally biased. So first, let's look at how people that use Arabic computers use computers before we go into programming.
Okay, anyone has a problem me continuing in Arabic? Okay. Okay, I will switch back to English. Huh? Okay, what I will show you first is how I, see people in my area, from my area, people speaking Arabic or working in computers in Arabic, do stuff with computer, just very briefly and quickly. This is a typical keyboard that you could find in an Arabic speaking country. What we can see here is that both alphabets, both character sets, English and Arabic, are present on the keys themselves. Of course, the user has to switch in a software way using the operating system inside in order to switch between the two languages, but in any case, both character sets are available and visible. It's been a long time since I used my Windows machine in Arabic, but for the sake of this talk, I did that. And, well, it took me, it was a little bit troubling, because the main aspect of using a Windows machine or an operating system in Arabic is that the shift in the direction. So everything goes from right to left. And here you see, the start menu goes to the right, and the calendar, the times goes to the left. The tab, the switching between programs goes the other way around, from right to left. And of course, you can see some internet browsers take switches to the operating system language, in this case Arabic, automatically, and this is Microsoft Edge. So the tabs are from right to left. We can see also that the URL is from right to left, but the text of the URL itself is English, which is left to right. And but other browsers like Firefox does not do that, and you need to change the language of the UI, of the user interface, from the settings. And in this case, I am on a right to left Windows, but the Firefox is left to right, and it's a little bit scary experience. I want also to show quickly some common software in Arabic, and what's more common than Excel spreadsheets. So in this sheet, we can see the some information in Arabic. Most of you cannot recognize, so you need to trust me. But the idea is that the ribbon is changed. The UI, the user interface, is changed to be from right to left. except for the canvas itself. We have the ABC columns, we have the sheets being added from left to right, and it's a bit confusing in this case. At least according to me. And we have here the formulas. The formulas are still in English, but the description is in Arabic. One thing also that comes to, when you experience working Arabic and English at the same time is that when you mix stuff, things do not happen in the way that you want, in many cases. And in this case, I just search like for the word power in the Windows search, and one of the results is I cannot till now cannot decide which word is the first word in this sentence, because it could be Windows, but it doesn't make sense. It needs to be the Arabic word that comes after that. So it's not really, I would say, meaningful to me. Another example here is that, this is some kind of Haiti translated code. So this is what we used to do when we wanted to translate some Haiti commands. And this sentence simply says, if a variable name called frog equals the value of the text called frog between quotations, then print, well done, something like that. And the problem is that although these two sentences should be presented in the same exact way, as you can see, it does not. And if I can show you, in this case, after the word difda in Arabic, it will switch to the is on the other side and goes left to right, and then goes back to Mumtaz at the end. And then, well, this is a little bit better in this case, and there's only one difference between how I wrote the first one and the second one, which is the curly brackets. In the first one, I wrote the curly brackets using the English keyboard. In the second one, I used the Arabic keyboard to write the curly brackets. They are the same character, but this is the only difference. And for a normal user, it's very difficult to find this problem, let's say. Now, I'll switch back to Feline to talk about teaching coding.
Yes, thank you for that. It keeps blowing my mind how all of this works. So let's talk about programming. Specifically, let's talk about how to teach programming to children, because that's how this Arabic programming language came to be. So many of you maybe know my history, but I started to teach programming to children a while back, and I thought it would be easy because it was small children, like 10-year-olds, and I was like, I know everything about programming, so this will be very easy. I'll just teach you programming. And then what happened is that in my mind, I remembered how I learned programming when I was a kid, right? And I guess many of you share this history of learning programming from programming books like this. And these books aren't necessarily teaching books, because if you would open the book, it would just be this. It's just like printed out basic listings, and you had to manually copy them into the computer because they didn't come with a floppy or a CD-ROM or something like that. So you just typed everything into the computer, and then it worked or it didn't. This is how I learned programming, and I think it's how many people, like children of the 80s, learned programming. And this has sort of Stockholm syndromed into us thinking that compilers are great teachers. Because compilers were the only teachers that we had, right? So we're like, yes, the compiler is our friend. But it's not your friend. It's actually not a really, really good teacher. But it's definitely the way I approached teaching when I started to teach kids. I just put them behind the computer, and they type the things, and they learn the things. If they make a mistake, they have this lovely compiler, and it will tell them what's wrong. So just to give you a little bit more context of the programming club, these were middle school age children, so 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And we started with Python. So I thought Python, it's an easy to use and super friendly language. But then of course, kids do things like this, right? So they type everything correct, like prints and quotes and a bracket there, and they just forgot the closing bracket. It's like a tiny mistake. And here's your friendly neighborhood compiler. Syntax error, unexpected, EOF while parsing. Teacher, yes, child, what is parsing? It's like, well, no problem, I happen to have the Dragon book right here. But that's not what you want to talk about in a first programming class. You have to explain all of these things. What is syntax? What is EOF? Right? Here's another one, even more troublesome. So this is like a determined kid. Everything is correct. The print, the brackets, the quotes, it's all there, teacher. I'm doing well. Oops, right? They made this tiny mistake. What does Python say? Does Python say, oh, no biggie, I can just remove it? No, 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 no. Indentation error, an expected teacher, what is an indent? I was like, I don't want to talk about indentation in lesson 1, right? So even though Python is friendly and easy to use for us, for beginners, syntax is just super hard. So I made the conclusion like, yeah, you know, compilers are not really good teachers for young kids. What we need is simpler textual languages for starting programmers. We need to have languages that are low on syntax, so not brackets and also quotes and also mandatory spaces in the right place in the beginning. And what I also realized that even, I would say, with Dutch children, we need systems that are localized, because syntax error, unexpected EOL is scary, but if English is not your first language, it's even scarier. So that's why I made Heddy. Heddy is a gradual programming language that starts sort of what we'd say almost syntax-free. So you can just do print hallo wereld in Dutch, and then it just prints that, and you don't need quotes, and you don't need brackets, and we gradually add the syntax. We have a cheat sheet, so we show all the commands that are there. And as you see, this interface from the beginning was already localized. So once we launched Heddy, the UI was in Dutch, all the help was in Dutch, the content was in Dutch. And even if you would make a little mistake, then the error messages would also be in Dutch or Spanish or other languages that we supported from the beginning. So here, for people that are in Dutch, it says, print is not a command in level 1. Did you mean print? So our error messages are sentences, and they are actionable. We tell you what to do, which we see with kids is really helpful. So I launched this, and I built this, and I want to talk a little bit about how actually we made this. So we're not going to go deeper into Heddy today. There are many talks on the internet about Heddy if you want to see that. But how it works is more or less like this. So we have Heddy code that children write. We have a grammar that describes what the language should look like. So we have the keyword print, followed by text, or the keyword ask. It's also a keyword in level 1, followed by text. Or you can also do echo, optionally followed by text. And from the grammar, we create a syntax tree that describes what the Heddy program looks like. And then we transpile Heddy into Python. So that's basically what we do. Conceptually, it's just like we have simple Python, and we add brackets, and we add quotes, so kids don't have to do that. And here, for the grammar, we use an open source framework actually called Lark. So I didn't write my own grammar or my own parser framework. You just describe the grammar, and then you get the parser for free. You might have also noticed that this is a browser. So maybe you're like, hey, but you have Python? And then how does it run in the browser? So we actually use another open source project called Sculpt. And Sculpt is a re-implementation of Python in JavaScript. So whenever you have Python, you can just run it in the browser with Sculpt. So I sort of shoestringed all these open source projects together. And that was the first version of Heddy that we launched about 2.5 years ago. Once we started to try this with children in the programming club that I was teaching, we asked kids actually, what do you think we can do to make Heddy better? And these were Dutch children, 12 and 13-year-olds, and they said, yeah, we want to have Dutch keywords. And I was actually kind of surprised. I was like, well, Dutch teenagers, don't they know English? But actually, it is kind of hard to get words right. Like one of the keywords you see in level 1 we have is ask. And sk is a weird combination that we typically don't have in Dutch. So we definitely saw kids struggling with the keywords in English. And I thought, okay, well, you know, I asked my users what they wanted, so probably it matters to them. So we built that, and it was actually not very hard. So what we did is we simply localized the grammar. So we have a grammar with English keywords, and we also have a grammar with Dutch keywords. And based on your user settings, we switch between the different languages. So I was like, yay! Well, I made a programming language that's internationalized. That's pretty cool. The end. No, because many people, sadly, many smart people have many great ideas. So one of the people I collaborated with early on is an American professor called Mark Gusdial. He's also working with localized programming languages in a different context. And he was like, hey, Hermans, nice work, but did you know bilingual people exist? I'm like, oh, dang, bilingual people, they exist. This is a pretty. And then wouldn't we want bilingual people to allow them to mix keywords, right? If you generally think in two languages, why would we force you to use only one language? And in terms of teaching, if a Dutch child already knows an English word, why would we force them to use the Dutch word if later on they need to know the English word anyway? So it's like, okay, well, we can make a small change. Instead of saying it has to be the one or the other, we merge the grammars, and you can use this keyword or that keyword. Yay! I made a multilingual programming language. The end. No, because there were other people, one specifically with me here on the stage. He was like, well, this is not very impressive. Why don't you also do Arabic? I don't want to. It sounds like a lot of work. But yeah, it was a lot of work. So the rest of the talk is like me taking you through some of the things. Well, they only gave me 40 minutes and not 7 hours. So some of the things we needed to do to actually make this work in Arabic. A not so short history of making Hadi work both non-Latin, right? Because there are two joining issues here. Firstly, Arabic has a different alphabet, a non-Latin alphabet, and also the order is right to left. And these are two separate concerns. So let's talk about variable names. Variable names was one of the things we ran into while internationalizing Hadi. Again, this is sort of the broad architecture of what we're doing. And as I said, for the grammar, we use an open source framework called Lark. So I didn't define variable names. I just imported a library from Lark, and this already had a concept called CNAME, which was a variable name. I was like, that sounds good. I'll have one of those, please. So the variables in Hadi will just be the predefined CNAME. I didn't think of it. I don't read the source code of open source libraries I use. I just assumed it would be fine, right? But if you read it, actually, which I did in the process of internationalizing, this is how they define variables. They start with an underscore or a letter, and then the next symbols can be an underscore or a letter or a digit, a number. Okay, sounds legit, but what is a letter? Okay, a letter is an uppercase letter or a lowercase letter. And then, so people that know internationalization are like, oh, if it's uppercase and lowercase, this is dangerous. Because this is actually how they define it. So yeah, this is a variable name. So a letter is our letter, but not anyone else's letter. And actually, this is even already relevant, even if you're not working on keywords. Before we had Arabic, we had French. And this is quite a reasonable program to do in French, where you say répéter, it means repeat. And then you ask the user, how many times do you want to repeat this? And then I want to repeat that many times. And actually for people it's like, what is this code? It is allowed in Hadi in certain stages to mix variables and plain text. That's not the issue here. But the issue is that this variable does not parse, right? Because the E with an accent isn't in between the A and the Z. So this doesn't even work, and you get this Python-like error message. Is that it looks like you forgot to use a command on line 1. No, but there are 2 keywords highlighted and everything there. So yeah, this was a problem even without Arabic. Even in other languages, you might want to have keywords that have letters that are not in between A and Z. So then I was like, okay, internet, how do I do this? And the internet had an easy answer. They're like, sure, no, we have internationalized variable names. Here's what you do. You just do this. Like, what? So I'm not gonna explain regular expressions and categories for that, but you can look up that on the internet if you really care about that. But this is basically all possible letters. And this is basically just all numbers in everyone's alphabets and everything. So all numbers and all letters. So you can start with anything that is a letter or an underscore, and then you can have anything for the next letter, for the next character that is a number. Yay, great. Okay, that worked. Let's talk about something else then. Let's talk about right-to-left parsing. This is actually one of the things I was super worried about, because I thought, well, all the strings are reversed. So how would this work, right? So you have print hello world, and then you also have, what does this say?
قول مرحبا أيها العالم.
That. So now, in the version we have now, we will do a live demo at the end. In the version we have now, we can parse both of these things. So we can parse this way, and we can also parse the other way. And actually, this was easy. This was the easy part, because text internally in operating systems and all sorts of file standards is always stored left to right. So the regular way for us. always. So if you see text that is right to left, it's never on the hard drive or in memory, actually right to left. It is left to right, but presented differently. So parsing was actually quite easy, but if you're debugging, it gets really, really weird. So for example, if I'm parsing this string here, and I'm debugging, so I'm doing a print statement somewhere, I print the input string that I'm parsing, you get the string presented to you right to left. But now you're doing like deep debugging, and you really want to know what is this one character right there. So you're printing the first character of the string. Yeah, we expect the exclamation mark, because it's like the first. No, the first letter is actually the ka. The ka. That is the first letter of cool, which is print in Arabic. So this makes debugging very spacey, very weird. Also note, this will be important later, that these two characters are not represented in the same way. So if a ka is alone, it looks really different than when it's connected to a letter that it follows. So sometimes you get a letter alone with a curly thing, and otherwise it's connected. Remember this. There's going to be a quiz about this. First, another quiz. Does anyone see an issue? I'm happy to award you with a cool, heady sticker if you can think, okay, so I see one problem with the right-to-left parsing this way. You are excluded.
I have the sticker already.
Oh, yes. No, the bilingual is not actually the issue, because the keywords are plain text in the grammar. Reporting error positions? No, that's also goes the correct way. Looping? So this is close. This is half a sticker, but that would be a pity, so I'll give you a full sticker. The issue actually is brackets. Because if this is your string, but it's actually reversed, then the first bracket you encounter is a closing bracket for us. So it's like, oh no, now I need to change the grammar to switch. It hurts your, I know. This has been my last 9 months, right? So, but you don't have to worry about this actually, because fonts fix this. So if you type an open bracket, then it makes it into a closing bracket. So on disk, it's actually the right bracket for the parser. So it fixes that in the font.
This also applies for the greater than and the lower than, for example.
True. The downside, so it's nice that parsing is relatively easy, but the downside of on the disk it being left to right and the presentation being right to left is that the presentation is up to programs. So different programs represent strings in a different way. So here's a heady program. So this is in PyCharm, represented the way we store it, because we store the keywords with brackets so that we can switch them out if people prefer English keywords. So this is the issue that you also showed in Word, right? So the first line goes right to left, and the other line the print goes right to left, but then the Arabic string goes the other way. So this is like problematic because also of the cursor hopping. But it can get worse, actually. I will show you next a screenshot in Vim. And like for my entire career, I've also always hated Vim because Vim hates me back, or Vim just hates users. But it turns out it can actually be an asset to hate your users, because Vim does nothing. So the thing Vim does with Arabic text is it just presents it left to right. Because screw you, half of the world. So this is what it looks like in Vim. So the circle thing in the first code snippet is the same as the circle thing in the bottom snippet, because they reverse all the letters, and here's why it matters about the letters being connected. Because the letters are shown the other way, the connections also are not there. So this is just basically like meaningless, right?
Yeah, I can read it, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yes, it doesn't mean anything. But I like to use Vim for Arabic editing, because I don't know what it says anyway, and at least the cursor goes one direction. So I love it. Like, thank you, Vim, for not doing your job on displaying text correctly. It's good for me, but it's not great for people whose language is being butchered here. So another nice topic, let's talk about numbers, right? You saw a bunch of numbers in Excel also. Did you know, fun fact, I didn't know this a year ago, that what we call Arabic numbers is not what people use in Arabic.
Yeah.
So we can actually parse some of this. Like, let's look at the progress that we have made. So this is repeat 3 times, print, and then something, print.
Hedy mumtia. Hedy is fun.
Hedy is
Something
fun.
like that.
So the keywords, they are not a problem, actually, because we just grab them plain text from the keywords file. So that part is there. Printing plain text between quotes is actually also not so hard, because we do a thing there called negative parsing. The idea of negative parsing, and this is actually something you might also use in practice if you want to parse something or process something that's non-Latin, is that we don't say we want to have letters between A and Z. We just say what we don't want. So text in between quotes, we here just say explicitly what we do not want is a new line. We don't allow that in a string text. And also what we don't want is a hashtag, because that's a comment symbol. And anything else is fine. So if you can choose, negative parsing is always better. You just say what are the characters that you don't want, and you allow anything else. That will really save a lot of work later. And I want to do a special shout out, because this concept of negative parsing is not something that we figured out. It's actually someone we owe a great debt to. That's this guy called Ramzi Nasser. And he is, like, I think he's one of the most interesting thinkers in programming these days. You might actually know him from this thing. It's Dialog 3D. It sort of was internet famous for a while. This is a clone of Wolfenstein 3D. But if you show it, and like Nazis are the enemies here for people that don't know the game, if you want to shoot a Nazi, then a pop-up will appear and says, wait, is it okay to shoot Nazis? Like, don't you want to wait, don't you want to engage in conversations with us? Is it really okay? And then the game is just programmed in a way that every enemy spawns another pop-up box, so that it renders the game unplayable, which, like, I think there's maybe a message there. Anyway, so he's like a brilliant guy, but in addition to Dialog 3D, he also made ELP, which is a programming language in Arabic, and this predates Arabic Hedy by a number of years, like a decade, and we took many advices from Ramzi in designing the language, so we just want to take a moment to credit him, because he inspired us just to do all of this work, and he had this idea of negative parsing. So most of this is figured out, right? So we can parse the right way, the keywords are stored, we have different keywords, so this says repeat 3 times, print. Okay, this is great. As I said, we transpile to Python. So what this actually converts into is for I in range between 0 and 3, and then it prints the text. This works. Great. But as I said, Arabic numbers are not Arabic numbers. This is an actual Arabic 3. So now I want to transpile this. So I just do this. For I in range 0, 3. It is a 3. No, it doesn't work. Syntax error. Invalid character in identifier. Huh. Interesting. Why is this an identifier? Right? Why does this parse as a variable name? Let's dive into this, because I have time, right? So, okay, Python. I is 3, it's a number, print I. This prints 3, this is good. Print something, so this is a g and then a 3, and then print it, then we get this. Name error, name g3 is not defined. Notice, by the way, how the editor and the error do not agree on the direction of the 2 letters. This is what you get for leaving stuff up to the presentation. So these are 2 things, because the editor is a web editor, but the error is actually Python producing the error. So like this is the type of shit I'm in, thanks to you. This is the thing we're fighting, but it gets worse. Okay, so this is apart from the direction, it's a reasonable error message, right? We're trying to assign I a variable, but this variable doesn't exist. Okay, the name is not defined. Okay, but then what about this? Why does it say invalid character in identifier? Why doesn't it just say this variable is not defined? Remember this guy. So variables, this is also what Python uses. So variables are defined as being allowed to start with an underscore or any of the letters. So this is like Schrödinger's number. Right? Get your shit together, Python. So it is enough of a number that you're not allowed to start a variable with it, but it's not enough of a number that it actually is a number that I can calculate with. So either it's a number or it's not a number. Like, what is this? Probably I'm like the only person on the planet that cares about this, but No, it's a number or it's not a number. It's not like half a number. That's not a thing. Anyway, there's also good news. So this works, right? The 3 works, but the 3 doesn't work if you have it like this. But what actually does work is if you have an int, you cast the string of the Arabic letter, the Arabic number 3 to an integer. This does work. Okay, good. So now I can do this. So I can convert this. Instead of putting the 3 in the range, I put the string 3 in an int, and it just works. And it has a nice benefit that this also works for Arabic, our Arabic numbers. So if you put in the string our 3, then this also works. Yeah. So I was like, you know, this was another moment of, ha, I mastered the machine, look at me. No, stop, no, there's more. Because remember this, you know, we use Sculpt, which is a re-implementation of Python. So it's like my test is passing, right? I run it in the browser. So it turns out Sculpt didn't implement this part of Python, because who needs to cast strings as numbers to use them in ranges? So then I had to write this, right? I had to overwrite the built-in int function of Python and pass it in the header. So we have our actual int function that takes a number and converts it ourselves. And it's nice because I teach students also Python. And then they ask me like, but why would you ever be allowed to overwrite a built-in function? Now I'm like, well, do I have the story for you? Here's just a really good and sensible use case to overwrite int. So this works, and this is what we use now. So this actually works. So now, you know how this story ends. Now I'm like, yeah. No, hey, look at this. It prints. But now he's right. But wait, why isn't this Arabic numbers, right? Why isn't this the output in Arabic numbers? Because we've converted everything to numbers, and it would be nicer if it would actually be the Arabic number, so you have to write another conversion to convert everything back to Arabic number. So if you actually run this code now on the website, then it works and it outputs the numbers if you're in Arabic mode into Arabic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is like, yeah, that was 6 months of my life, but it was worth it. So one more thing before we go over to the live demo and like looking how this works in practice and the cultural implication. There's like one thing that is like mind-blowing. Is like these Arabic guys, they never stop with all their weirdness. It's just like this one thing. It's like so much. There's like this. Okay, so now we do repeat 10 times. So this is 10, right? Because I come from this way, so the first thing I encounter is the 1. So just for you, if you don't know Arabic, this looks like us a bit. So the stripe is a 1 and the dot is a 0. So I'm going this way. First the 1, and then the 0. This is 10 times, right? This is 10. Tell me this is 10.
I still don't understand why you think that, but...
No, this is not 10. This is actually 1 because the numbers, the order is the other way. Why? It doesn't have to be this hard. So this is actually 10. So it's like least significant and most significant digit is swapped for no other reason than to make my life miserable. So it's just like, and I know this is like fun, but it's also like, basically I'm just here saying what an ignorant idiot I was. Like, why didn't I know all of these things? How little did I know about any of these cultures? And it's interesting, like, fun fact that in the Netherlands, actually, in the law, like, it says what children should learn in elementary school. It is in our national curriculum mandatory that children in grade 8 and of elementary school learn Roman numerals. I kid you not, this is in math class. You have to learn Roman numerals. I don't know, it's the rule. So why do we teach Roman numerals, but then we know nothing about numbers that people actually consume, which might help us design software in a better way? It's just, I don't know why. But I learned many things, and now you also know a few of the things I learned. And with that, I think we want to go over to the second part of the talk.
Yes, thanks, Felina. So that was an interesting part. But I want to also to introduce another aspect that we work together to improve. This is called an ethno-programming model. So Outi Laiti from 2016 from Finland came up with this model in order to understand how she or people should teach programming to minorities who do not speak English. And for her, in her case, these were the Sami minority in the northern of Finland. Interestingly, she created this model of 4 aspects or 4 pillars: hardware, software, terminology, culture. So the hardware, you need some kind of a machine, a laptop, to actually program. You need a software like Hedi, but not only Hedi, like the browser, the editors, etc. And then you need a terminology, so translation of keywords that reflects the language of the people you are teaching or you're working with. The translation needs also some discussion, but maybe for a later talk, and also the culture. So there was a cultural aspect, and for her, she introduced it as one aspect of the culture is the language. And the idea is that if we want to reach these kind of people, the students, the young learners, we need to bring them something that is relevant to them, relevant to their culture. Language is one aspect, of course, but also includes the materials, the examples that you provide, and all sorts of things that makes in programming for them also relevant. So we wanted also, with Hedi, we wanted to introduce cultural relevant aspects. So not only pure translation from what is Hedi or what is Hedi in English into Hedi in Arabic. So for this, we had two things or 2 features to introduce. One of them is the gendered words. So in Arabic, names have gender or a grammatical gender, let's say. So either a feminine or a masculine, so male or female or male. And that also has an effect on all different aspects of the sentence, such as the adjectives, the pronouns. The pronouns. And in this case, we wanted to allow the children or the programmers in Arabic Hedi to use different pronouns when they use different kinds of gendered names. In this case, in this example, the word name is for Arabic speakers is gendered as male, while the word zawiya, which means the angle is gendered as a female. And then if you are naturally speaking in Arabic, you would use different pronouns, huwa, wa hiya. And for this, we wanted to provide this feature as a cultural relevant aspect in the language that is relevant to what children usually speak when they grow up. And that the solution was to allow both versions of is in the grammar. Another aspect of Arabic language that is also culturally relevant is the calligraphy, the way we write the language. As Filina mentioned, there are some unique features to Arabic. For example, the letters are automatically joined. There are what we call harakat that you can see here in red, which gives the vowel, let's say, direction of a letter. We have also what is called elongation. It's some sort of extending some of the letters in order to keep some sort of a justification that is relevant to the context that you are writing in. And all of this gives the language some sort of an artistic form that stays with the person and tries to abide to in his writings. And for this, we wanted to provide only one feature of this, which is the tatwil, which is the extension. It's a Unicode letter that allows the line to be extended. And the idea, of course, in an Arabic word, you can extend some letters and in order to make the whole word longer, but the meaning stays the same. But to make the life of Filina a little bit easier, I compromised and I said, okay, we can accept that the tatwil character to be anywhere in the word, but in reality it will not be relevant, for example, to start a keyword or a word in Arabic with a tatwil character. In any way, we provided this as a also culturally relevant feature. So, demo time. Oh, I need to close first, I think.
I guess you have to drag it to the second screen, maybe?
Is there a second screen already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. It's difficult. I don't see the screen now. But in any way, what you see here is the Arabic Hidi in practice. So we are in Mustawa Wahad means level 1. And we have all, the most important part is the intro here, which gives introduction into the commands that you can do. You have tabs about different adventures, more sort of exercises that you can do. And eventually let's say that I'm a little bit, oh, sorry. Anyway, so this program says print Marhaba Rotterdam, which means hello Rotterdam, and then print Bil Arabi in Arabic. And then if we execute, you can say the exact letters. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but you can see here that the qul, the print, is not extended, while here the qul is extended. And the idea, for example, some people would like to make it more justified, and then they can use the extension for this. And then you can go to different levels like this. And one thing I wanted to show is the level 6, for example, with all the nice letters that Felina fell in love with. And here, for example, we have some sort of a calculator that you can work with. It's basically there are lists, and then you choose the list at random, and then you multiply numbers by each other and ask the user to give an answer. So it's asked what's the result of 2 multiplied by 6, and there is for example, I will put a number 44 or 44, and then it says wrong. The answer is 12, and we can. Not sure if we are. No, we are not. We're almost done with the time, so the demo can stop now, I think, because there is one last slide we wanted to show. And that is, this is a good start, according to us, to what we think, but not a universal solution. And why is it not a universal solution? There are a few reasons that people could think that way. One of them is that, people could argue that eventually Arabic-speaking children will have to learn English in order to work with other languages, with Python itself as well. But this is not an exclusive issue to Arabic. Also, that also applies to Dutch, for example, Hedi programmers or people using Scratch in their localized languages. What we say is that, starting with your own language, programming with your language brings some sort of connection with programming that is relevant to you. And of course, transfer issues later is something that people need to be aware of. And unfortunately, this is the reality for now. Another issue is that, for example, some Arabic speakers would disagree with the choices that we've made. For example, a print has different kinds of, could have different kinds of translations, like itba or qul or something like that. And the good thing about it is that it's a community effort, so people can contribute to what they think is right, and then we can have discussions about translations, what is relevant and what is not relevant, but also they can create their own version of Arabic, because we have different, of course, accents, like the North African, Moroccan, we have the Egyptians, we have the Levant, etc. So people can contribute, and of course, we will be happy to have more people on board. And lastly is that some people, of course, when we think of the ethno-programming model with the cultural aspect, it has other pillars like the hardware, the software, but we acknowledge that Hedi is built on top of a system of an English-based, let's say, programming language, editors, parsers, etc. So it is not an original or authentic Arabic, let's say, programming language. But eventually, this is, again, a good start, and we hope people can join on board in order to improve this and use it in real life with Arabic-speaking children all over the world. And we hope that we continue developing this further. Thanks a lot.